You're listening to Dramas Over Flowers
with Saya, Anissa, and Parma.
And this is the Year-End Yak.
2022.
Welcome to the final segment of this year's Year-End Yak.
Yay!
Yay.
Yay for the yay.
Yay for the yay. Unfortunately, Saya couldn't join us for this segment.
Yeah, so Saya is ill, unfortunately, and she couldn't make it, but she sends a message. So I'm just going to share her message here. She said, please send the listeners my love and apologies. And she asks for special messages telling her how great she is. So send those to her. And unfortunately, she said, my voice has left the building and my lungs have decided to have the revolt the British people couldn't manage when the Queen died. Of course, they're revolting against oxygen, which isn't the smartest thing to do, but neither do the British people do the smart thing. So in that, we are equal. So that's your message for Saya. Great message. But we hope she feels better.
We hope she feels better, and do send her messages of quick recovery, and tell her how awesome she is and how you guys wish she was here instead of us. She'd appreciate that.
Instead, or maybe in addition.
Well, sure. Okay, right. So in this segment, we asked previous guests and friends of the podcast to share their reviews of underrated gems of 2022 so that, we could highlight shows that we may not have seen or covered properly on the podcast. So we start out with Frabi, who last joined us for our episode on Boys Over Flowers and F4 Thailand. And she writes epic essays on K-dramas on Krabi for Dramas. Her site is going to be linked in the show notes. And she wants to talk about Our Blues.
Hi, it's Frabi. And one drama that stood out to me in 2022, one that I think is very underrated, was Our Blues. And it feels bizarre to call this underrated because it's a drama that gained massive attention back when it was casting everyone, and it has an ensemble at the centre made of massive A-list actors. But once it started airing and people realised that it was an anthology series, meaning that it's following different characters every few episodes, the attention started to sort of drift away. And I don't feel like it gained the love and support while it was airing that it deserved. It's a drama written by No Hee Kyung, who you might know from Live or It's Okay, That's Love. And she has a tendency to write these characters who are rough and abrasive and prickly, and you don't feel like you can love them at first, but she finds ways to sort of make them feel more human. And that's what makes her characters so lovable and her writing so addictive for me personally. Live, for instance, is one of my favourite dramas. And I feel all of the same parts here that I loved there. This massively charming ensemble, these very raw human stories, and this sort of underlying theme of connection and the power of connection. And it's just such a shame to me that people didn't watch it, because it sounds like it's a drama that sort of rinses the melodrama, right? If it's called Our Blues. But I feel like I said, it's very subtle and raw and human at its base. And I feel like a lot of people can relate to it and will find the experience of watching it to be very rewarding. Plus, not to mention, it has the best soundtrack of any of the shows that I watched this year. And if I've sold you on any of that, I beg you to please go and watch it. It was one of my favourites from the year. Thank you.
That was very persuasive. If I hadn't already started watching it, I would definitely go start watching it now. So before we talk about Frabi's review, Yuna, who is a friend of the podcast, works in television and last joined us for our episode on My Unfamiliar Family, also wants to talk about Our Blues. So we are going to listen to her first.
Hi, happy holidays. I thought a less covered drama this year was Our Blues. I loved it. The cast was stacked. You have Kim Hye-ja, Lee Byung-hun. The list of A-listers goes on and on. And you also have a star scribe in No Hee-young. I thought the format was refreshing. Each episode was a deeper exploration of, if I remember correctly, a character or two and how they came to be. As someone who moved around quite a bit growing up, I loved seeing this tight-knit ragtag crew of childhood friends who grew up on Jeju. They're in everyone's business. They know every embarrassing detail. Secrets and rumors spread like wildfire. But it's because there's this community of people who truly care. All they have is each other, and I think everyone really understood that to their core. And the Ajima grapevine is no joke. Anything that happens on a small island feels magnified. I also loved seeing the seasons change, the snowy winter, the vibrant summer. Loved the depiction of Henya, the elderly woman freedivers. You know, they say Jeju is composed of three plenties: woman, wind, and rocks. I was worried that there would be some storylines that paled in comparison to others, but overall, I was moved by all of them. I'll never forget the most stunning depiction of postpartum depression. It was so quick and effective. I replayed that scene multiple times. It was brilliant. Our Blues was funny, heartwarming, heartbreaking, and I really, really enjoyed watching it.
Wow. Anisa, are you watching Our Blues?
I've been watching Our Blues slowly because, as Fabi mentioned, like, it is an anthology series, but I think that's really beautiful about it. It's like this series of interconnected stories that are about each of these characters. Like each group of characters will have their own, 2 or 3 episodes, but they all know each other. They're all in the same community, and I haven't finished it, but it's just a really, I don't have much to add. They've both said it so well. It's beautifully written, beautifully acted, incredible cast, incredible scenery.
Yeah.
It's like going on a vacation, but then also like having an incredibly beautiful emotional experience. And also, like, you start out not liking a lot of characters, and then by the end of their arc, you've like totally loved them. And that's a
Exactly.
rare gift in a writer. And No Hee-kyung is really good at that.
No Hee-kyung is brilliant. The drama of hers that I watched was It's Okay, It's Love. And it took me a while to really like that drama, but now it's like one of my favorites ever. She's really good with having characters with layers, and you don't actually
Absolutely.
you can't actually figure out her characters just by with what happens with most dramas. You watch the first episode, you pretty much know what each of these characters are like. You can pretty much guess their judgment, their motives, and how they would react to certain situations, because they're all archetypes, they're not real humans. But her characters always feel like real humans, because they're messy and sometimes contradictory. The one thing that really stands out to me in Our Blues, and I just want to add that to what these two said, is that this felt like a story of actual Jeju inhabitants. What often happens with dramas that are about like rural areas, or like other dramas that are based on like Jeju or other parts of South Korea that's basically not Seoul, any other part, it often feels like they create characters who are living a story that could actually be happening anywhere. They are going through, like, the place is facilitating a kind of experience for these characters, like Summer Strike, for instance. I love them, but honestly, that story could happen anywhere, and the main protagonists aren't really local. Like, they're becoming friendly with locals, and they love the place, but they aren't like off the soil, so to speak. And that's deliberate. Think of Hometown Cha-Cha-Cha. Also,
Yeah, I was just going to bring up Hometown
Yeah.
Cha-Cha-Cha. Yeah. It's like an escape from the city in a lot of ways. It's that
Yeah.
narrative of like, the big bad city and then returning to the small town, and how it's like returning to some kind of like simpler, idealized, nostalgic.
exactly.
Life.
So it's a story of like a rural town, or even like the Park Min-young one, the When the Weather is Fine.
I'll come to you in weather's
Yeah,
fine.
it's how those areas are like just simpler and good for the soul and all of that. It's very city perspective is what I'm trying to say. Whereas Our Blues has no city perspective. It's so local, which is why it feels very strange when you're watching it. The rhythm of the story feels different. It doesn't feel like it's for me, a city dweller. They are just telling the story as it would be on the island. So that's, yeah.
Yeah. And I also want to say, like, her recent work has really focused on the full internal lives of elderly people in a way that's rare.
Dear My Friends.
And,
Dear
like,
My Friends.
Yeah, like Dear My Friends, which I watched, I think last year, a couple years ago. I watched it late, but like totally destroyed me.
Yeah.
In the best way. And this as well, you know, like there's a real reckoning with like multiple generations and how they're, you know, dealing with the world and what they're struggling with. So yeah, not to, you know, go off for too long, but it's a really beautiful show and more people should watch it.
Absolutely. All right.
And Kim Woo-bin is back in it. Well, I have to say, it's very weird to see Kim Woo-bin and Shin Min-ah like having love stories with different people, but they know each other. It's weird. Like, and they're on the screen together. Anyway, that was funny. It was very meta. There's this one scene where Lee Byung-hun, who has the storyline with Shin Min-ah, is telling Kim Woo-bin about this woman that he likes. And Kim Woo-bin is like, is she pretty? And he's like, yeah, she's pretty. And he was like, of course she's pretty. And I was like, yeah, that's your girlfriend. It's just funny. If you don't know, they're dating in real life. And they have been for a long time.
Yeah. That's one of my favorite couples. Like, I try not to care about actor couples at all because it's none of my business. Seriously, none of my business. And being happy or sad about it is super parasocial, and I try not to do that. But these two have like slipped through the cracks and kind of like become a solid thing in my heart. And I just hope they have the best relationship for as long as, you know, they have it. If it's forever, that's great.
Yes.
Okay, moving on.
I am genuinely rooting for them. I agree. I'm usually very like, I don't care, I don't want to know, but they have a special place in my heart. I want them to just like quietly be happy.
Exactly.
Where we don't see them and we don't know about them. Yeah.
Okay. Now, the next review we have is from Anya, another friend of the podcast, who is a mystery novel author. She was also last with us on the My Unfamiliar Family episode, the one that Yuna was on. And she wants to talk to us about Kiss Sixth Sense.
Hi, I'm Anya. I'm a crime fiction novelist, so maybe it's hypocritical of me to wish that Dramaland stopped inserting unnecessary murder side plot into otherwise delightful dramas. Which brings me to one of my favorite dramas of 2022, which is Kiss Sixth Sense, which is an absolutely great 10-episode drama. Hold on, I hear you say 10 episodes. I'm pretty sure it says 12 episodes. It does not. Trust me, those last 2 episodes do not exist. And for those of you interested in story structure, it actually manages to have a perfect story arc over its 10-episode run. Whereas in the beginning, you have 2 people who are lonely because they have disabilities that stop them from dating anybody. But by the end of episode 10, they realize that as long as they're with the right person, those disabilities actually are special abilities that they put to good use for finding secret ways of making out all across the office. Also, the inciting incident, the moment that kickstarts the plot at the end of episode 1 gets perfectly resolved by the end of episode 10 in a sequence of scenes that manage to be both hot and hilarious, in a very rare example of that combo not being mutually exclusive. So don't press play on the last 2 episodes, because honestly, you do not care about the murder side plot, and you know who did something bad in these people's childhoods. You will not care. Stop watching at the end of episode 10 for a very perfect little drama.
I completely agree. I haven't reached episode 10 yet. I started watching it after Anya wrote her essay for our blog, which we'll link below. And listen, she's right. I don't care about the murder plot. I'll probably stop at 10. I just care about these 2 staying together because they complement each other perfectly, and they are actual adult human beings. and they have conversations that adult human beings in a relationship or like approaching a relationship would have. It just overall super enjoyable if you just watch it for the romance, and if you ignore all of the murdery childhood trauma stuff completely.
Yeah, gives me like her private life
Right.
vibes, which is also perfect at 14 episodes.
Exactly.
Don't at me. Next, we are going to listen to a review from Just Me, who's a friend of the podcast, and she was last on our Spoiled Yak about Mr. Queen, and she's going to talk about Summer Strike.
Hello, testing. This is Just Me, old friend of the podcast, here giving a tiny review of Summer Strike, a K-drama that's currently airing right now. So the show hasn't ended yet, so take what I say right now with a grain of salt, but here's my review. I think Yim Si-won has really found his niche in playing the shy, considerate male lead. I now seem to associate the character with who he really is in real life. So either he's playing it really well or that's who he really is. And either way, I'm enjoying it, so I don't care. The plot seems pretty straightforward. It's about an overwhelmed, sad girl that takes a break from the day-to-day hustle of city life and finds herself living in a simple town. It's a slow show about healing and people interacting with each other. It's kind of my cup of tea at the moment. So nothing revolutionary, but it's absolutely charming. So give it a try. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Just Me.
I agree. Summer Strike is really, it's like, a cool glass of water when it's like really hot. It's comforting and it's nice and it's refreshing. And also, sometimes watching a drama is a bit of a strain on you where the plot is like taking up a lot of space in your brain and your heart. Here, you just care about these two people sort of like, going through their personal, like their internal upheavals and just like getting to a place mentally where they can be happy together. And, surrounded by a whole host of people with their varied, motivations and all of that stuff. Sometimes supporting, sometimes disrupting this dynamic. But overall, it's just sweet and it's comforting. And it's like, like reading a good book. So
nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, I definitely want to check this out when I return to K-drama life at some point. Right now, I'm like finding refuge in anime because I'm tired. So next we have Mimi from The Talking Cupboard, who was a guest on our episode about the red sleeve, and she's talking about Bloody Heart.
Hi, I'm Mimi from The Talking Cupboard. So my underrated drama of the year for 2022, I've decided that to choose Bloody Heart or Vulcandanship, starring Lee Jun, Kang Hana, and Jang Hyo. The reason simply because I'm a fan of saga or historical drama, so this was on my to watch list for quite a long time. The reason that made me stick with the drama was, of course, the characters of Lee Tae, played by Lee Jun, and Jang Hyuk's character. I forgot his name actually, but the reason I kept watching was all the women. Yeah, so if you like watching girl empowered, so I think you'll like this political historical drama. So that's all for me. Thank you.
Aw. It went completely under the radar for me. I didn't even know when Bloody Heart aired and when it ended.
My sister watched it, actually, Zainab.
Yeah.
She was saying that she really enjoyed it. But yeah, it was very like quiet. I didn't hear a lot about it either.
Yeah, especially because it was Lee Jones' like return vehicle after his army stint. So I thought it would get like a little more marketing.
right.
But What I didn't realize about this drama was that Kang Hana was in it, and I really like Kang Hana, and I've been kind of like hoping for her to get like a major big role for a while. She was the vampire, the narcissistic vampire in My Roommate is a Kumiho, for those who have watched that drama. And she's adorable. She's awesome in everything she does. She was also the older sister in Startup. So yeah, I mean, if this drama is not so much about like men fighting for the crown and all being like my birthright, and more a little more about the women, I am really happy to watch it. I'm really tired of Saguk's being all like, the agony of not having the crown.
Yeah, you're speaking my language, Borma. But yeah, this sounds also, this is just like an incredible cast. Also, my sister had put like one of the songs from Bloody Heart onto like a Spotify playlist that we were listening to in the car, and I was just like, this music,
Yeah.
it's so good.
Okay.
So the music is good.
And also, it's notable that Mimi thinks this is a good saga, because Mimi, if you guys don't know, she on her blog, she has this, I think, 3 or 4 posts which are basically history lessons on Korean customs, especially around courtship and marriage. And they are the most epic posts. The stuff you learn there, your history books are not going to teach you. So I'm going to make sure you guys have the link for that too, because if you have any interest in Korean history, especially around courtship, you guys got to go and read that. It goes through like a good 1,000-year period. Like it goes through like different stages. So she covers a lot of time and a lot of customs, and she's still working on her next post because there's a lot left to talk about. So if she says it's good, it's probably really, really good.
So the next review is from Meenal, who is the co-host of the Crash Landed on K-Dramas podcast, and she's talking about Law Cafe and Love All Play.
Ooh, Love All Play. I have not heard much about that. Okay, let's start.
So Porama asked me which were the 2 dramas that I would like to speak about, which I watched in 2022. And my vote goes to the Law Cafe and Love All Play. The common element for me in both dramas was the depiction of a very healthy relationship between the leads, as well as perfectly written male leads, which I would like to see more in K-dramas. So first about the Law Cafe. This had all the right elements for me. A feisty female lead, a supportive, caring boyfriend, a fun supporting squad, and a villain with a flair. The Law Cafe is not your perfect drama. It was not even the best legal drama. But what I loved is how it tackled various sensitive issues, especially the topic of consent, not only through the cases it dealt with, but also through the relationship of the main lead couple. It also sent me into a deep rabbit hole that is Lee Seung-gi, because I don't know how I had not noticed before how charming Lee Seung-gi is as an actor. I loved his expressions and his charisma was undeniable. Lee Se-young as Kim Yuri sits in the top 5 of my favorite K-drama leads ever. She was compassionate, she was empathetic, she was loud, and she had this no holds barred, I will do anything, I will fight for you till I die attitude in everything she did, which I absolutely loved. The relationship development was so lovely to watch. They were not afraid to voice their vulnerabilities. They self-reflected on their words and actions, and they understood the meaning of giving each other time, space, and freedom. But what I really loved is how absolutely hot and sizzling and fiery the chemistry was for this couple. It was a very well done, mature romance for a couple in their mid-30s. So, listeners, if you haven't watched it, I would urge you to watch this drama. It's a great rom-com. Now, about Love All Play. I started this because it looked like a fun sports drama. I didn't expect that the romance would be played out so well with such a perfectly well-written boyfriend. To me, the USP of this drama was the young cast, and to see fresh faces, young actors deliver such good performance was a treat to watch. Chae Jong-hyuk as Park Tae-jun, the male lead, stole the show. His wide, bright smile just warms my heart. His character, Park Tae-jun, was not only a great boyfriend, but he was a wonderful son, a great brother, and a wonderful teammate as well. In a nutshell, I would call him perfect. Park Joo-hyun delivered a very sensitive performance as the female lead Park Tae-young, who has a lot of emotional trauma and is finding her way back. In many scenes, I just wanted to reach out and give her a tight hug and tell her she's very, very loved. Luckily, Park Tae-jun often did that in this drama. But for me, the surprise packet was the second lead, Kim Woo-jun, who plays this arrogant star player Jung-hwan and who was also frenemies with Tae-jun. And their rivalry, their banter was fun to watch. I think my only complaint about this drama was I would have loved to see more on-court badminton battles because some of the matches and the practice they showed were my favorite scenes. I would really encourage people to watch this underrated gem. I am sure it's not going to disappoint you. To the lovely team at Drama Over Flowers and to their lovely listeners, this is Meenal wishing you all a very happy new year. I wish we get more great K-dramas to watch in 2023 and we all have fun discussing them. See you!
Oh, what a lovely wish. And to you as well, Meenal.
Actually, you know what, Meena, you kind of convinced me to at least give Love All Play a try. I've been eyeing it for a while, but it seemed to me that it was. I mean, the trailer focuses very much on like sort of like an inner rivalry in the team. I don't even know if that's an actual plot or just something the trailer did, but the story doesn't do. And I was just coming off watching some sports dramas, and I just didn't want to go back into it. But this, what you're describing, sounds completely different, and a story that I would be a lot more interested in. I also didn't realize that the boy playing the lead, Chae Jong-hyuk, he's his son from Sisyphus. Do you remember the boy?
Oh yeah, son. I liked him in the small amount of time that I saw him in Sisyphus.
Yeah, he's done a lot. Like he was on Nevertheless, but I think he was the second lead. I don't actually remember what he did in Nevertheless. My attention was not on anyone. My attention was specifically on like 5 people on Nevertheless and no one else.
He was also in The Witch's Diner and Hot Stove League. This sounds cute. I tried Law Cafe. It wasn't for me, but Love All Play does sound like a fun show that I want to check out. So thank you for.
Yeah.
I like that the guest reviews bring us, different perspectives. Otherwise, it's just like the 3 of us.
Yeah, exactly.
Talking about like the stuff that we love, and it's good to have varied perspectives, because I know that sometimes we really love something and y'all may not have loved it as much, or like we're really down on something that y'all really loved. So
true.
This was a great opportunity to get more varied perspectives.
Yeah. And with Law Cafe, I started watching it, but I kind of went off like halfway through. I think episode 5 or 6. I kind of stopped watching because it felt really predictable. But I've been hearing, I know the romance doesn't quite kickstart until like a little later. So maybe what I need to do is just power through that phase and get to it, because I've been hearing such good stuff about the romance, like their actual relationship once they get together, that I'm tempted to kind of go back. So this is one of those dramas that I kind of paused watching but haven't DNF'd, because DNFing is like solid commitment into giving up and I just can't do it. So I think I might actually end up finishing this drama.
It does feel like once you finally put it in your dropped column, that's it. You're saying goodbye. It does feel very like a final, nail in the coffin. Our next review is from Tina, who is a K-drama critic, and she's talking about one of my favorite shows of the year, Pachinko.
My name is Tina, and I'm an avid K-drama watcher who sometimes finds time to tweet and write about them. I think that a drama that was underrated this year for me was Pachinko. I did hear a fair amount about the show when it was being made, particularly around the casting, but after it dropped earlier this year, it didn't seem like anyone, or at least anyone in my circles, was really talking about it or watching it. Now, as we're wrapping up the year and doing all of our year's best lists, I feel like Pachinko should be on more people's lists, even if it's not technically a K-drama since it's American produced. As someone who was skeptical about what this adaptation would look like, I was actually really pleasantly surprised at how well done it was. The story was gripping and emotional. It stayed true to the book, but without being weighed down by the source material. The actors were just incredible. The scenes were beautifully shot. And I especially love the way the show seamlessly went from English to Korean to Japanese and back again, sometimes within the same sentence. I'm not sure what it was about it, but there was something about seeing an integral element of these characters' lives, just as it was meant to be. And I just thought it was just really, really well done. Now, I do have to say that there is a season 2 for the show coming, so there's a lot that's unresolved at the end of this batch of episodes. And the whole season 2 thing may not be appealing for a lot of K-drama watchers, which I get. I'm usually like that too. But I think the show's good enough to look past that. So if you can access the show, I would highly recommend it.
Yeah, I think, I've talked about Pachinko, but I really want to pick up on a point Tina made about the way that they, code switch in between different languages and different, even within those languages, like different ways of speaking the language. And I think, yes, I guess technically it's not a K-drama because of, who produced it and where it appeared, but at the same time, like it does feature so many of the iconic actors of this generation, and it does take place in Korea and Japan. And I think, like, out of all the K-dramas I've watched, this is the most accurate and like moving portrayal of the immigrant experience that I've ever seen. It makes sense that you wouldn't usually see that in a K-drama, right? Because most of them, even if they're portraying the experience of an immigrant, it's like an immigrant who has left the country and has returned. And here you're really looking at the diaspora and a very painful sort of, a really painful manifestation of that migration experience. So I'm really glad that Tina brought that up because it's so beautifully done. I think it actually improves on the book. Obviously it hasn't been finished, so we can't say that definitively, but I think the structural decision they made to move back and forth between different time periods, which is done very skillfully and gorgeously. The cinematography, the acting, the music, it adds more interest to the story. It adds more tension, which is kind of counterintuitive, but it's just so beautifully done. So yeah, highly, highly recommend, even if you wouldn't normally be interested in this kind of multi-season kind of story. It's worth it.
And now K-drama viewers are all getting used to the multi-season story, like unwillingly kicking and screaming, but that's where they're taking us.
That is true. This is one case where it's actually not a bad thing. Which is rare.
Tina says that technically Pachinko isn't a K-drama, but in my head, I know it's made by Americans, but in my head, so far, it was a K-drama.
Yeah, it's living in the K-drama space. Yeah. It's living in both spaces at once for me in my brain. So it's an interesting project.
So the next review we have is from Abdul, who is an educator and a YouTuber, and he wants to talk to us about Green Mothers Club.
Green Mothers Club is a terrific drama. Think Sky Castle for the middle class. A story of mothers that are willing to do anything to help their children succeed. But where Sky Castle lives in the skies, Green Mothers Club lives in a gritty reality. The betrayals are personal, the compromises are severe, the mothers are desperate. The once esteemed professor who has fallen hard, the queen of the social circle who has some dark secrets, the woman who lives in fear of always falling short, the one whose husband just isn't right, and the one whose life is just not as perfect as it seems. It's a story where friend and foe shift constantly, and the story succeeds because it isn't about the mystery. It's about flawed, imperfect humans trying to make the best of life. They're not great people, but they're people you can sympathize with. Lee Yo-won is, as always, brilliant. Chu Jae-hyun gives the performance of a lifetime, and the ensemble cast works because all of the women are terrific in portraying not just their characters' flaws, but also their humanity. It didn't make many waves internationally because perhaps stories around the difficult lives of the middle class and the extremely competitive nature of academics are not relatable. But what is relatable is trying to do good for your family and messing it up. These women know life is hard. They also know that their children are suffering because of their mistakes. But in an odd way, they have no power to stop it. All they have is their pain, their hope, their love for their families, and a lifetime membership to the Green Mothers Club.
Very beautifully said, as
Yeah.
usual, Abdul.
That was lovely.
Wow. You know, I saw Abdul tweeting about this show. I think it might have been in response to our Dramas Over 2022 prompt on Twitter. And I was like, you know, you're the first person that I've seen all year talk about this show. And he was like, but it was so good. And I was like, okay, we need to talk, you know, you need to talk about this show. So I'm really glad that we got to hear about this because maybe it's my like instinctive sort of knee-jerk response that's the problem, and I'm sure other people are also like, I'm not really interested in watching this show about like mothers trying to help their kids succeed in school, but it definitely makes me think twice about that initial being like, not for me.
But the reason we tend to kind of not want to watch that so much anymore is because it's so overdone in these high school stories, and not always badly overdone, but it's been shown in a range of stories, everything from School 2017 to deeper stories than that. But it is an aspect of parenthood and children's life that is like almost ever present in a lot of K-drama. So it does feel like it's over. But he's actually very right. We don't have a lot of stories that plumb the middle class realities of parents pushing their kids to do better. And also parents tend to be shown as like villains or like unfeeling ambitious people who don't really care about their children's true welfare in most of these storylines, but that's not the space parents are operating from.
Right.
Most of the time they're horribly worried about their children's future because they can see how every year employment opportunities are going down and how the competitiveness and the goalpost is shifting. So you could get into a really great company if you did AB, and now you have to do CDEF, and maybe you get in the wait list. So that's just getting harder and harder as years go on, and parents are very aware of it. So yeah, actually that is a newer perspective. So thank you.
And you make a good point. Like I think most of these shows are from the students' perspective, and the parents are kind of these like supporting characters that are not fleshed out very well. Or if they are, like in Sky Castle, it's definitely not a realistic portrayal. And these are not like realistic. I mean, it's extremely enjoyable and it's hilarious and it's like tense. But I mean, these are not real people. And so I appreciate a show that is actually giving us the parents' perspective in like a nuanced and grounded, realistic way. So thanks for that, Abdul.
And next we have a review from Episdoe Seiji, who is a Korean studies professor, and she last joined us on an epic episode we did on bullying in Korea. That's remained one of our favorite episodes that we have created till date. And she wants to talk to us about All of Us Are Dead.
Hi, this is Episdoe Seiji, and I'd like to spotlight All of Us Are Dead, a high school zombie drama that was enjoyable from beginning to end. I tried the first episode of the drama, and I found that it was very high suspense, but I liked the characters and thought the young cast was compelling enough that I wanted to keep watching. In the era of the COVID-19 pandemic, maybe it seems a bit too real that an easily communicable disease would suddenly take over a whole area. But main themes in the drama include the government failing to manage a catastrophe appropriately, where politicians seek to make themselves look good more than address the situation, which of course leads to more deaths. In this way, I would classify this drama partially as a veiled critique of botched rescue efforts after the Sewol ferry disaster. We can also read this drama as a parable about how far you will go to save the people you love. Even the mentally unhinged science teacher at the center of the outbreak was essentially trying to protect his son. And throughout the drama, we see family members die as they seek to protect those they care about. There's something comforting in a story of a parent or a sibling that will do whatever they can to save you, even if the viewer's heartstrings are snapped when one family member eventually dies. And finally, I appreciated that this drama had substantial leadership, intelligence, and fighting ability shown by high school girls, including not just good students, but school outcasts and members of the athletic team archery. In the second season, I expect the mystery of the functional half zombies to be unveiled.
Ooh. I don't usually like zombie dramas, but you've made it sound like such an interesting sociological and, psychological drama that I'm like kind of into it.
She has done a much better job. Actually, she's done a really great job of talking about this drama. I watched it when it first came out on Netflix, and I couldn't figure out how to talk about it. Like, I liked it a lot, but it's difficult to explain what I liked about it. Like, there are a lot of really badass moments. There are a lot of heart-rending moments. And there are a lot of helpless people caught up in a situation that nobody expected. And the people who should be able to help them are completely unable to help them, which is like the worst, situation to be in a disaster. I had actually not connected it with the ferry disaster at all, but that makes a lot of sense. Given how fresh that is in everybody's memory. And
yeah, thanks as always, Cedar Bow, for giving us that like additional context. And as expected from a professor of Korean studies and who works on culture.
Yeah. And those who don't watch zombie dramas because they just don't like the horror genre. Again, you know what? K-drama, zombie, they're just not horror the way like the West does horror. It's always the social commentary, and the zombies are. It's fine. Keep your lights on. Watch it during lunch or something. It's not scary, I promise.
I guess we'll have to hear from people whether they actually agree with you about that.
Think happiness, right? Was that what? There are a couple of jump scares, but most of the time it's just about like how humans react to a sudden and unexpected disaster. That's the focus. And that's almost always the focus with these dramas when, Korean writers and directors get their hands on them.
Yeah. I'm glad that you mentioned happiness, because I know if Saya was here, she would have brought up happiness.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh my God.
Which is another zombie drama that makes us think of COVID and has interesting social critiques to make about how people react in these kinds of situations.
Even if it had zero social critique, it still would have been a favorite because, oh my God, have you seen the cast?
Great cast.
That's a friends to lovers story that I'm always going to try and get people to watch. And finally, we have K Fangirl from the Fangirl Verdict. She is a well-known drama blogger. We all love her.
Yes.
And she was last on the podcast with us to talk about Squid Game. Let's find out which C-drama she wants to talk to us about today.
Hi, everyone. This is K Fangirl from the Fangirl Verdict. In terms of an underrated drama from 2022 that I wish more people would talk about, or at least give a chance to, I hope, I think I'd have to pick Chinese drama Shining for one thing. So on the surface, this show looks like a typical high school drama with a side of fantasy time travel thrown in, which isn't a bad thing really, because I was really taken by the trailer, which shows our female lead Basing finding herself back in high school after breaking up with her no-good fiance, and she gets to do a do-over. And so I was all about wanting to see Basing kick her no-good fiance to the curb in this timeline. But then earnest, steadfast, shy boy Wanson comes into the picture, and before I realized it, I found that I was completely smitten by him, which is definitely one of my personal highlights from the show. The thing is, though, this show can lean a bit slapsticky comedic sometimes, and that might put some people off, I feel like. For example, the way Beijing approaches Wansen in the beginning, it doesn't land at all like what a normal human being would do. And so I feel like Manhwa Lens fixes that quite nicely. And with a bit of patience, honestly, this show grows into a love story that's more epic than one might first imagine, given the high school setting and the fantastical sort of premise. I just wanted to say that this one crept under my skin more than I imagined it would, captured my imagination more than I thought it would. And now there's going to be a follow-up movie, which I'm very much looking forward to because I just really want to see these characters again. In a very broad sense, the feels that I get from this reminds me a bit of Taiwanese drama Someday or One Day. And that is a drama which I crowned my drama of the year in 2019. So that's saying something. All that to say, I hope more folks will give Shining for One Thing a look. It's just 24 episodes of 45 minutes each, and I believe you can get it on iQIYI and Viki. That is all. Thank you for listening to my spiel. Happy holidays, everyone, and I'm wishing you all a great year in 2023.
I just looked up the drama too, because I had not actually heard about this one at all. And this kind of reminds me, there have been a lot of these dramas where a protagonist goes back in time, especially to their high school days. And there was one, I think just last year, a short drama where this heroine, when her friend passes away, and then she, like, years pass, and then, you know, she finds an opportunity to go back in time to sort of correct what had happened. It was like a short web series. But every time she goes back, she can't quite correct it. So she goes back and she goes back and forth basically. And she keeps trying to correct whatever goes wrong. And she's also trying to figure out why her friend, commits suicide. So I forget the name of that drama, but that's the one that comes to my mind immediately. But there have been quite a few. There was another C drama that I recommended to you. Remember, Nisa? The one where the lawyer goes back to college. And she doesn't want to get back with her boyfriend again because you started watching it, but then you didn't like it much. Legally Romance.
After 14 episodes, yeah, I dropped it with anger and frustration, but I enjoyed it. I enjoyed some portions of it. The male lead was great.
The male lead was great. So this kind of sounds like that, but better. If K-Fangirl is recommending Shining for One Thing, I think maybe this is the drama that gets the formula actually right. In K-dramas, you've also had Again My Life, Reborn Rich, but those were like revengey, go back in time dramas, whereas in the romance genre, the same time travel formula seems to be used more for like, let me correct the path I went down the first time.
Yeah.
And instead of like getting vengeance, it's more about just like making better choices this time.
Yeah, we've had some like romantic time travel. Like there was that remake of the Japanese drama where the guy, the girl that he's always loved ends up marrying their high school teacher, and he like tries to go back in time to confess to her, and he keeps failing. It wasn't a good drama. But I definitely watched it, and I definitely watched the Japanese version, and I mean, it was Yoo Seung-ho. I watched it for Yoo Seung-ho.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, this is a trope that's been around for a long time, but when it's done well, it's really, really good.
This sounds like a really sweet romance, and thank you for the recommendation. There are so many C-dramas I have to catch up to from 2022. It was actually a really good year for Chinese dramas, and I'm glad we could end this segment with a good recommendation.
Absolutely. Thank you, everyone who sent in your wonderful reviews. Really appreciate the way that this gave us more breadth to our coverage of 2022 because, we can't. I mean, we talked about it before, but there's just so many dramas. No one can watch everything, and it's really nice to have your voices sharing your experiences of 2022. We wanted to also read a comment that Roberta actually left in our end of year polls for the Gokuma Awards, which we really wanted to share with all of you. So she writes, "May I say how much I enjoy your podcast? Last year, I needed to drive from Detroit to Pittsburgh on a weekly basis through the summer to assist in the care of my mother, and your funny, opinionated, thoughtful, amazing voices came on the road with me as well. The three of you got me to Pittsburgh and back on more than one occasion, and I cannot tell you how grateful I was that you were along for the ride. I loved hearing about how well the podcast was doing at last year's award podcast, and also about the successes you are each experiencing in your personal lives. Thank you, thank you, thank you for your dedication to this podcast. I know how much commitment it must take to do this, and it gives me such pleasure when a new episode becomes available. You have given me a lot of things to think about as I have become a K-drama fan over the past 3 years. I'm an older person and consider myself a feminist, but your observations have made me think hard about how I interpret this world of drama and my own world. Also, one of my favorite episodes was one where Anisa's mom was a guest, and I'd love to hear her voice again. Oh, my favorite award last year was Porama's I Will Die on This Hill award. Thank you. You are all wonderful, Roberta. Thank you, Roberta. This is so nice. This is so nice to hear and so nice to receive. And like, we really love hearing from you all because we love putting out our voices, but it's because you're listening to us. And when we hear that something was meaningful for you, or that, if we helped you get through a tough time, that's like the highest compliment, honestly, because I don't know about you, Parma. For me, like, this podcast has also helped me get through some tough times. And it's really beautiful to know that that's the case for some of our listeners as well. So thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
It has helped me get through tough times when I have felt completely useless. I have those phases. Getting an episode out and listening back to it is something that makes me feel, that reminds me that I'm capable of enjoying something, talking about it thoughtfully, doing something productive about it. There are way too many layers. And I appreciate Roberta's comment. She noticed that it's like, it takes a lot to do this podcast, but she also noticed our love for it. And we don't approach the podcast as like, how do I put it? For a lot of people, producing anything on the internet is kind of about clout or how to replace their job with like this thing. And that's actually, I'm not shaming them for it. That's excellent. It takes a lot of work. For us, though, the podcast was always the place where we just wanted to come in and talk to each other, talk to you guys, and just like clear out our thoughts, because talking to each other and then later on when you guys leave us comments, send us emails, talking to you guys about, the shows we are watching, the themes we have noticed, improves us as people, and just, I don't know, it feels like something worthwhile to do. Okay, I made this needlessly deep.
I totally agree. And it enriches the experience of watching these shows beyond just a TV show that you like. It takes it to another level. So yeah, we appreciate you. Yeah. And I appreciate you, Parma. And I appreciate you, Saya.
We appreciate you, Anisa. And Saya is the coolest, most wonderful co-host ever. I just want to make sure she got compliments from us too.
Saya, we love you.
We love you so much.
Do this without you. Get well soon. You're amazing.
Yeah.
I can just imagine her like running away from us as we say all this.
Okay, all right. So we have one last bit left, which we are excited about because you guys have been so amazing. Anisa.
So on that note, we wanted to appreciate the guests who came on the podcast in 2022, share their time, their thoughts. We really, really appreciate it. So in this past year, we had Zainab, my sister, we had Frabby, we had Mimi, and we had Stefan Lee.
Thank you, guys.
Yes, we really appreciate it. I know, we have very long recording sessions, and y'all are all troopers for sticking with us through those.
Yeah. We have long recording sessions, but we are also like sticklers about like how your sound has to be and a lot of things basically. And you guys have been amazing to, go through all of that and record the episode. So thank you for coming on.
Especially those of you who are not related to me, and so I can't tell you what to do, like my sister.
It is very convenient that if something goes wrong with Zainab's, recording setup, Anisa just has to exit her room, go over to where Zainab's recording, fix things, and then come back. And finally, we want to extend really heartfelt thanks to our patrons. A lot of you have been with us for a very long time, and so we just wanted to give you a shout out on this episode, which is like a wrap up of 2022. So as of December 30th, 2022, these are the patrons who've been with us. We are going to go in the order of patrons who've been with us the longest to patrons who have just joined us. So here we go.
So thank you to Egads,
Steve B,
Leah W,
Shosha 10,
Humble Daisy,
Eunice C,
Jojo,
Katie Cole,
Edith Parker,
Marcia Howard,
Una Tuna,
Dr. Chi,
Anya de Jager,
Leslie Humphreys,
GK,
Lynette Johnson,
Helena,
Stacy,
Hannah DH,
Sarah,
Easel,
Frances MIA,
David F,
Eugene Young,
Julia,
Olex,
Fungi Lee,
Lindsay,
Safa,
Mel G,
Anonymous Otter,
Frederica D,
D Win,
Abel,
Ingat Kayo,
Kitty C,
DJ,
Arlene F,
Keisha Watson,
Jesse,
Where's Wallace,
Rhonda AJ,
Zitza,
Dal A,
Jen K,
A Hopkins,
Anonymous Iguana,
Daisy,
Kira,
Sharon J,
Peps,
Arlene M,
T,
Robin M.
Yes, thank you so much.
guys. Yay! We can't stress enough how much your support has meant to us. It's been the backbone of this podcast from the very first month that we launched this Patreon. And we've had a lot of support from a lot of you. Thank you. And to those listeners who supported us for a time, you guys are also really close to our heart. Thank you so much for what you did, because that allowed this podcast to exist for a little longer. And yeah, we're deeply grateful.
Yeah, as Warma said, the support that you give us, the financial support, but also just the emotional support that helps us keep going. We couldn't, pay our bills for the podcast without you, but we also just knowing that you all value what we do enough to support us in this way is so motivating and inspiring. And so even when we're dead from all the other things in our lives, we are so, it really helps us to keep going. And the community that you all have built, it's really, really nice. And we love you. And we're looking forward to another year of making amazing stuff, hopefully, that you all will like.
Yes. And now, finally, we come to the end.
So you can find us on Twitter at Dramas Overflow. You can find me on Twitter at Anisa Khalifa _. You can find Saya on Twitter at Not Now Saya.
Send her messages telling her she's cool, please.
Yes.
You can find me, Parma, at The Drama Notes. And you can find Dramas Over Flowers on Instagram at dramasoverflowers_. You can email us at dramasoverflowers@gmail.com. Definitely sign up to our newsletter. Link is below because, well, we send you good stuff and we don't spam. And you can find us on Facebook. Just look us up. Our website is dramasoverflowers.net.
Dramas Over Flowers is part of the Frolic Podcast Network. Find more podcasts you'll love at frolic.media/podcasts.
Thank you for listening, everyone.
Yes, you made it to the end. I salute you.
we made it to the end. Yay.
Yeah, let's salute each other too. All right. Bye.
Bye. Good night.
오늘의 날씨 일기예보는 맑음 햇살 밝은 오후 무작정 어딘가 향하는 발걸음 너와 자주 걷던 거리